Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Legion from 2010. This movie is honestly just a lot of fun. A lot of real just shooting away, blowing things up kind of fun. And we have a theme that's really like supernatural and interesting and whatever. Uh, like, immediately the quick comparison would always be to like for a lot of these kinds of films, especially when you get possessed people involved and demons and whatever. A lot of times you would have this feel, and especially with this being at just one setting, you could have this kind of feel like if Evil Dead was to have had like a bigger approach to it. You could go on and have this feel like an Evil Dead kind of situation. Because we have this Paradise Falls diner where it's kind of secluded away from everything, and all of a sudden everything is to go on and come to this diner one way or the other, making for a very interesting film. Going towards this movie, I really like the fact that I didn't realize, even though I've watched this quite a few times, didn't realize this movie was technically a Christmas film. There's a certain line drops and whatever that is going on and reminding us that I guess this was a Christmas movie, where we go on and we have people saying like Merry Christmas to people, or we of course have Howard's character that's mentioning, hey man, we want to get out of here, like we're going off to Christmas, or going off for a Christmas thing, like when can we get our car ready, so on and so forth. So yeah, didn't pick that up ever in the numbers of times that I've seen this, but hopefully I'm going to be able, since I like say like, oh, I've seen this a number of times and whatever, that like it's like I don't f anything up. But when actually going through this movie, I also watched, like, I got like the DVD and Blu-ray thing of it, and like it was kind of cool to kind of hear people talk about the movie Legion, and having certain people kind of like talk about how they felt about certain scenes, like Charlie going on and like, yeah, like the character Adrienne, or Adrian, who mentions that she's like, yeah, like I had to go on and find like everything that I could find about like a pregnant woman, and kind of the birth of life and whatever, all those videos and all this stuff, like trying to like figure out how to like do all this in a movie and whichever. And Tyrese Gibson going on and talking about the scene that he had with Charles S. Dutton, who plays Percy in this movie, and how he kind of got like kind of surprised by all of a sudden like that he just thought he was kind of doing this one scene, and all of a sudden Percy's turning to him and like crying and all this stuff, and he's like, "Whoa, all right, like I guess we're delivering that kind of acting." Okay, wow. Um, but yeah, but it's just kind of interesting to kind of get people's perspectives about this film, and how we had like the creator of all this, who was the like he knew like so much information about all this stuff, and how it really felt like there was going to be like a number of movies coming out of this, because this guy knew so much about all the like all this stuff that he came up with and yada yada yada, and how it just sadly just didn't go past this film. So this movie like does have this interesting element of an angel who is to give up his wings to become mortal, like a dogma kind of situation. But we have, of course, Paul Bettany, who plays Michael here, and he, of course, is to go on and give up his angel wings to fight for the human race. Going to this Paradise Falls diner and trying to fight off all of these demons that are, or just possessed people, that are trying to get at this woman who's to be Charlie, who's to have this child, so that way it prevents it from being born. Because it's going to get born soon. So, like, it's interesting that we had this diner from out of nowhere, and slowly but surely we start to see all these vehicles just making their way to this diner for all these possessed people. And I just found that to be such a weird and wild visual. How, like, we have a place out of nowhere that has so many people making its way to it to try and take down this diner. I thought that that was just a fascinating visual, and how we got more and more unique things out of this. Funny enough, the guy who is to be the ice cream man in this movie actually had gone on and done a number of just characters somewhere down the road. At one point, he had gone on and also done Silver Surfer from uh, Fantastic Four 2, Rise of the Silver Surfer. He had gone and done that role, and he had also gone on and done like a number of other like things, but like that's one that just kind of pops into mind quickly and easily. But anyways, so like he ended up playing like Abe Sapien from Hellboy, the original Abe Sapien from the Ron Perlman Hellboy films. Because I know there's another uh, Abe Sapien that they kind of did in the other Hellboy movie, but it is what it is. So going on, so let's just go on into spoilers. I like this movie. Where can you go out of your way to say that you've seen this film? Well, conveniently, I guess I didn't go on and check if there's a convenient way to say that you've seen this film, because I would immediately figure out that there is probably no way to see any number of things. So if there is a convenient app that you can dare in fact watch this, because I didn't bother to go on and just like, oh yeah, this is on like Tubi right now, or Vudu right now, or this is this right now, because I'm sure like this movie would probably go on and not easily be seen from an app anywhere. I guess I could go on and pause right now and check that out. Let me pause here for 1 second. Technically, it's on Stars right now. Really, that's the only thing that I was like, oh yeah, like Stars, and that's really about it. It seems that any content that's usually on Stars, that seems to go well, but that was my intention. I just coincidentally was already like, yeah, let's finally watch this movie because I like it anyways. So Stars is a convenient option if anybody is to go out of the way to watch Stars regardless, because it seems like there is a lot of content on there that actually is pretty good. Every once in a while, you'll find a really good movie that is on Stars that eventually will end up on the Netflix and will be the most like popular thing on Netflix. So Stars is always a really convenient app to watch really good things. So where can you also go and watch this movie? Well, besides Stars, you can go on to Google searches and search for certain apps called Letter C Movies. So it's a letter and then a word. You can go on and Google search this app and there, in fact, be able to download it and go on and be able to watch any freaking thing that you want. You could also go on to a app called Fox HD Movies, and you can by golly see a logo that'll say Fox HD Movies, but a title that'll say something different. It'll say like Play 1080p HD Movies. And by golly, you can download that app, and by the combination of the powers of both those apps together, you'll be able to see whatever you want. Uh, every once in a while, there'll be an app called Google on a Google Play Store called TV Crush. I say that simply because every once in a while you'll find a movie that's on there that you won't be able to see anywhere else, or vice versa. Like Into the Mouth of Madness, I just recently watched on TV Crush because I couldn't find it anywhere else. Yeah, a very picky taste choice of which that I have, but F it. Like I want to see a film, and I will go out of any way of stretch of imagination to find a movie and see it because I want to see it for the first time, or I want to see it again because I thoroughly enjoyed it the first time around. So, With that said, I think it's that time again, just go into spoilers. Grading system for this movie would be that it's a great film. I think a lot of people still don't even know it exists, and if they do, they'll probably go on to be like, yeah, this movie was and I can understand that. But at the end of the day, if people haven't seen this movie, they should. Even though a lot of people would go on and have this be like the I am number 4 ending, where there's some stuff where it's like, yeah, like what was the point about the whole tattoo thing? What was the point about this? I don't get what that was. Like it's also kind of funny how we have to reiterate the narration of the thing that happened in the beginning of the movie, like towards the end of the movie, and I just don't quite get that. But like we just have to have movies that have narrations in a film, and like there's only so much that people would want to go on and uh, want to narrate for a film or whatever. But anyways, let's go out of our way to say it's about that customary time yet again. Let's just go into spoilers about this one. Let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time we get to spoil this movie. So, Legion. We go on and we have a film where, at the very early stages of it, we of course have Michael that is to do this thing called drop from heaven. Because we have Michael going on and talking to Gabriel, and Michael is to get the word that God has lost faith in humanity, and Michael just can't because he loves them too much. Gabriel is going on and telling Michael, it's like, well, hey, like, don't defy him. Like, this will be the last time that you have to fight him. And so there's going to be some there's going to be some repercussions for that. All of a sudden, we see a number of angels. They're kind of flying in heaven, getting ready to just take down what, of course, is to be Earth, or what is to be like in the mid part of like which would probably be like Midgard. Like if we have heaven and hell, like we have Earth, that's kind of like this Midgard. Which if you ever seen a Thor movie, you know what Midgard is. But it's kind of this middle ground, middle Earth, whatever. So we go on. We have Michael, who is to get rid of his angel collar, and is to, I guess, supposedly cut off his wings. But maybe when he takes his collar off, I guess the wings come off. I don't know. The next thing that I just see Michael do is trying to sew up his wings, which I'm like, how? How exactly can you accomplish that thing? Like you're basically using your arms to sew up your back. That seems impossible. I would like to think that you would have to go on and just burn that part of your body, because that would make a lot more sense. Like I would think any number of wounds would have probably been healed by like you just burning that part of your body. That would have made a lot more rational sense to go on and do that. Like, but I guess this guy didn't have a knife or a sword or something on him to be able to accomplish that task. But still, sewing doesn't feel like you're going to get the job done either, but I guess that's just me. Anyways, we go on and we have Michael that is to bash his way through one building to get this arsenal of guns. And so we have these two police officers that are conveniently driving by, because everything about a movie is always, I complain about the convenience of it, but like you would have to have some cool moments in a movie. Like, so if something seems too convenient, it always has to be, but I still gripe about it anyways. It's like, yeah, isn't it kind of convenient that all of a sudden this guy bursts through this wall right as these police officers are right there to be like, excuse me, police officers here. What are you doing, sir? So Michael bursts through this wall with all these guns. And so these two officers are to stop him. And all of a sudden we go on and have this person who is to become possessed. I'm assuming this might be Gabriel talking through this man. again talking about how Michael is still being a defiant member of the Angel Squad, so to speak, and that uh, and Michael is just going on like, hey, I'm gonna do what I set out to do. I'm gonna protect this woman. So we go on and have Michael stubbornly go and steal this cop car and drive away with it. After, of course, he's to be forced uh, to one way or another kind of battle it out here. So we go on. We have Michael who is making it to Paradise Hill Diner, where like there's nobody really there besides the number of people that are all to be inside this diner coincidentally at one time. So we of course have it where like everybody in this movie has their own little like monologue of something that like they have their own little beats and their own little story. Like I think it's kind of funny when Bob is to mention about his lighter, on how his lighter to him has sentimental value because it always reminds him about his ex-wife and how much he hates her. I thought that that line was so funny. There's always something about this movie that is always like so like funny when they present the part of the film. It just really never gets old. So we go on. We have a number of these people that are all by this diner, and we have to where, of course, Charlie is to be smoking, and she's pregnant. So we of course go on and have and here's where things start to get a little goofy. We have Kyle, who's Tyrese Gibson, that is driving his way to this diner, and he's asking directions from Charlie, saying like, "Hey, like, am I actually here?" And Charlie's like, "Yeah, that's you're nowhere close to where that is." So we of course have Kyle that's asking for like a cigarette from this girl, and hoping that he's gonna get a phone, be able to use his phone, and hopefully get also some directions. So as Kyle is driving by, there's to be this weird, goofy cloud supposedly in the far distance that's possibly going to make its way closer and closer to this diner, which we'll find out later that that cloud is not exactly a cloud, unless it's a McClan McCloud from Highlander. The movie Highlander? No? Oh, okay, I get it. So, every time probably I would say the word cloud somewhere, like the Clan McCloud from Highlander. I always like to throw that little reference. So, so we of course have Jeep that is asking Charlie if she's okay, because I guess all of a sudden there's to be this guy that's around her. Because Jeep always likes to be the hero, even though there are some times when this guy's to be put in the position to be a hero, he chokes, but still. Anyways, so we have Jeep that's going on and talking to Charlie at some point, and we have it where Jeep and Charlie have these exchanges where Charlie's mentioning to Jeep that Jeep is far too nice, going on and wanting to be the father to possibly Charlie's child, and trying to go on and trying to do the right thing, and that like Charlie just comes off as like trying to do so much and trying to help everybody. And when really looking at it, all of that is really just a mistake. And all of that is just to like be him that doesn't know any better. So we of course have it where Bob is to go on and notice that Jeep is kind of hauling out this crib for Charlie, and Charlie had mentioned to Jeep that she's going to give this baby to someone else within a month or so. And so I don't know why Jeep is thinking that Charlie is going to keep this kid, but we have Jeep who has this old rusty crib that he's going to go and try to clean up for Charlie for some reason that doesn't quite make sense to me. But Bob is going on and talking with Jeep, and Jeep is, of course, going to have to fix this family's car, the Anderson car. Uh, of course, this father and this mother and father that has had this daughter with them. So Bob is going on and telling Jeep, "Hey, like, fix this car, get these people out of here, so they can stop complaining about the weight of things." And so Jeep tries to fix this car and realizes that it's a BMW thing. That, of course, to have this problem with this computer, and there's no way for him to be able to fix this. So, but also Bob is to tell Jeep that things aren't going to work out the way Jeep, of course, wants it to. Like, Charlie is never going to go on and look at Jeep as a boyfriend, as a husband, as a whatever. That Charlie is always going to go on and step out with other men instead of Jeep, and Jeep finally needs to realize that. And Jeep is going on and telling his father, it's like, well, hey, I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, but I just have this weird feeling that something is going to work out here. Something is going to all happen. And Bob is like, well, yeah, I get that. I get that. Like, for me, like Bob is saying here, for me, Bob is to say that this diner, weirdly, was something that he thought was going to, like all of a sudden they were going to build all this land here, they were going to have all these things here, they were going to have this superstore, and all this stuff was going to come in here, and then Bob could justify this diner, and this, like, all of this stuff was going to happen, and it just didn't. And so Bob is kind of seeing Jeep hanging on to something that's just never going to happen, and he's holding all this hope for something that's just not going to pan out. So we have Bob go into this diner, and he keeps telling, of course, Howard, that thing, like, hey, he's wrapping it up, it'll be done in a jiffy, whatever, but he doesn't even know what's going on. Jeep doesn't really know. Then when Jeep goes and explains to his dad that, like, yeah, they're gonna have to tow this car to some other dealership, Bob is like, oh crap, this guy's gonna get ticked. So, and they never really explain this to this person because things never really come up. So we also have Bob that is trying to just smack this TV consistently to try to get it to work. And we have Bob consistently, like, having a problem with this TV where he's like smacking it. And Percy is telling Bob, it's like, well, someday, you know what, that TV is gonna smack you back. And he's just like, well, hey, like, you just don't understand the relationship that me and this TV have. Like, yeah, I don't want to know what that kind of relationship really is, but okay, sure. So all of a sudden, Bob is trying to get this TV to work, like, smack it in the perfect way to where it all of a sudden all works. And we all of a sudden have this warning signal, which has to be the most annoying thing of this movie, where they're letting this warning signal blare on for far too long. Um, and then they also go on and they're trying to, like, see if this radio station works, and nothing works out of that either. So we of course have Kyle that comes into this diner as Charlie is to tell him, hey, like, go on and try to get in there and use this phone, you might have to grease the wheels or pay somebody off a little bit, but you can probably get to use their phone. So Kyle goes on and is to try to call his ex-wife, mentioning that I guess that their custody hearing he'll be at. But he also wants to talk to his kid, which he never gets to because the phone starts breaking up. And so Kyle is to go back to talk with Bob to, of course, mention that he wants his money back from that call because it technically dropped out. So we go on here, and we of course have our characters that are just kind of in this situation where they're like, okay, this is so weird. This day has kind of gone on to a very like off start. So we all of a sudden have this old lady that's driving in, Gladys. Weirdly, we have a girl that's probably not really much in this film, but she has her own name, which is like, okay, like for how much work that she probably has to do in this movie, Gladys. So Gladys goes into this diner, and hopefully by now I've kind of set everything up at this point. We also had Charlie that's going on and was to give Kyle the cigarettes, and we have Bob telling Charlie, it's like, well, I hope that you're not smoking anymore. And Charlie goes on and is to mention about Bob having his smoking habit, and Bob's like, hey, I haven't smoked in a number of years. And she's like, well, you still have that lighter on you. And Bob was like, well, yeah, it has sentimental value. And that's the old joke about his ex-wife. So Gladys makes it into this diner, and of course they ask for a very rare steak. And we all of a sudden have these like flies that are all flying around this one steak. I'm like, that's gross. And plus the way in which that this steak looks just looks gross regardless. But we all of a sudden have Gladys that is going on and like, hey, how are you? Like, I'm Gladys. And it's like, oh, hey, like to the Anderson family. We also have at one point where we have Howard talking to Audrey because Sandra is to have this attitude about Audrey just looking like a hoe. And so Howard is going on and saying like, well, hey, like, Audrey, do you purposely go and wear the least amount of clothes every single day? And Audrey is mentioning that she wanted to get like double teamed by some guy at some truck stop, but I guess that couldn't happen now, can it? And so Howard's like, well, like I feel satisfied with that answer. You, right? So we have Gladys that's going on and is talking to Charlie and is now saying that like, hey, like, what do you do? And she's like, well, in a month from now. It's like, well, your baby's gonna burn. And then she's like, what? It's like, yeah, all your babies are gonna burn. Like, and she's like, oh my God. And then we all of a sudden have everybody like stepping in like, whoa, old lady. But we start to see that that Gladys is to go on and really start ribbing into people. Whereas like Sandra is going on and starting to like talk, and then Gladys is saying it's like, shut up, lady, all you do is complain, complain, complain. And then we start to see that this girl is to all of a sudden get a little demon into her, and is to have these like shark-like teeth and these darkened eyes. And so all of a sudden we start to see this woman flip out as Howard is to try to come to defense of his wife, and this woman is to bite into Howard. And so all of a sudden we have Percy who is to go and take this frying pan and swing it and smack this lady. and supposedly her neck is to be broken, but she goes on and just snaps it back into place and is starting to go on and like crawl over the walls and all this stuff. And so we go on, we have Jeep who's grabbing this shotgun and is thinking that he's going to shoot this woman, but he's so scared he starts to choke and he's like closing his eyes and he's so tempted to just shoot this woman as Percy's telling him, shoot that woman! And all of a sudden we have, of course, Kyle that comes in and is to shoot the woman instead, because really, Jeep just couldn't do it. So they go on, and I guess because like they can't call anybody, and because Jeep is asking for Bob to call a tow truck, but Bob's like, hey, we can't get service. Like, I guess the phone lines are down, or all the lines are down, maybe they're just working on something. So this old lady, they go and they take this like plastic bag and they put her outside. They're like, yeah, like this woman is weird, so we're just gonna take this body and put her outside. And so all of a sudden we have this police officer, or this police car, who is making his way to this diner, and like, yeah, like some authority here, and we can go on and have this guy help us. So here's the thing. Why doesn't this police car, why doesn't it have a radio? Why can't any number of people go on and call this radio and have help being sent? That's my immediate problem. Because we also go on and we have a bunch of characters, Percy, Kyle, Sandra, Howard, all them peoples, trying to drive to a hospital that's going to take forever to get to. And then Kyle is saying, it's like, hey, I'll drive you guys to the hospital, but then I need to scramble. Like, I need to get out of here. I need to make it to where I need to go. All of a sudden to just get pelted with all these like locusts or all these flies or all these whatevers through the cloud that was to not actually be a cloud. It's just a cloud filled with all kinds of insects. So these guys back up and they make their way back to this diner. So Percy's going on, I'm like, I'm going to get my Bible. Bob was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, something's going on here. Something's going horribly wrong here. Because they're just thinking that it's some cloud in the distance, but it's not. It's a massive swarm of locusts. So they're like, man, like freaking all heck is breaking loose. Apocalypse is popping off right here and now. Dogs and cats are living together, mass hysteria. Ghostbusters. So, as I always have to reference every single Ghostbusters line through every review of any time a world would just go to F. Or go and get effed at some point. So everybody's in the diner just freaking flipping out. We of course have Howard, who's getting some kind of like tie being onto his neck. You would think again, burning that guy's neck would have a temporary solution. I don't know about an infection, because when I would go on and see like a movie like Idle Hands where the guy chops off his hand, they go and have like Seth Green go and like put a thing to burn that guy's hand so that way it would stop the bleeding. So you would think like this guy would like just burn everything. Probably have the guy get infected later, but at least the bleeding would stop. Because this guy is probably just bleeding out, I'm assuming. So our characters here, we have, of course, Michael, who is to appear within this cop car, and is going on and telling everybody to get inside, and that, like, everybody's going to start getting prepared to all have guns, because they're going to need them, yada, yada, yada. So Michael hasn't really explained to anybody what's really going on, but he knows what's going on. So we get to a point where, like, all these guys are just kind of waiting it out for something they don't understand. And so we, at some point later on, have the ice cream truck that seems to be the first coming of things. And we have this ice cream truck guy. All these guys are having all these guns on the roof of this diner, and they're thinking like, "Oh, this guy isn't so bad." And then all of a sudden he's like, "Argh!" And they're like, "Oh my god!" Like he's on all fours and he's like crawling his way, and they start like gunning him down, and then they're like, "Oh my god!" Like this thing is crazy. So after that whole event, Bob is like, "Okay, hold on a minute." Because we have Michael who tells Charlie to don't do anything brave. Because we're going to find out that she's like the key to all this. So Michael is finally going to explain to people what's going on. And it's kind of funny when like Dennis Quaid's lines in this movie, because he's like, "Well, I don't even believe in God." And Michael is like, "Well, good, because he doesn't believe in you either." Like he's given up faith in you also. So we also have Bob. It's like, "Well, I'm if you're an angel, then I'm Santa Claus." Like, well, ho ho ho, because you know. So we have Michael that explains that God has given up on humanity, and Charlie is the key to all this because supposedly Charlie's baby was never supposed to happen. Charlie's child was never supposed to be a thing, and since it now is, that is to cause, of course, God, who is losing faith in humanity. And now everything is resting on this child being born, and then after that, we have it to where people are still going to have to defend this child till it is to become of a certain age, I'm assuming, or I'm guessing, or I'm whatevering. So now they've technically explained all this. We then go on, and of course have it where at some point we're going to have like a certain rush of zombies make their way here, but then they're going to go on and really have to test certain people and to outsmart them, because they're going to have to get to have things give the illusion of certain things so they can kind of dwindle down these numbers and try to figure out how to get to all of these people, so to speak. So the first rush of all these zombies are starting to come through, and we of course have a number of people on the roof, but also the diner is to eventually start to get some possessed people to grab onto some of the members in here and try to get to them. And we of course have Charlie that is trying to grab on to Howard before he gets taken. And we of course have Michael that tells Charlie, it's like, "Hey, you weren't supposed to do anything brave." So we of course forcibly have it where Michael is kind of blasting these guns through all these windows, and these guys have to turn around and board all these windows and try to nail them all down. And so Sandra, who is slowly but surely losing her mind, is to really just go on, and because there's going to be a trial coming. So we go on and have one of the things be that, and these guys are kind of boarding all the doors. They're trying to holding everything out. So all of a sudden, we have Howard as Bob is falling asleep by the rooftop, and we have a number of scenes that are also going on in the rooftop and a number of places where everybody's going to have their own little bits of dialogue and so on and so forth, which is always confusing because there's so much stuff to digest here. We have a number of scenes going on where we have both Kyle and Percy that are having a scene where we, of course, have Kyle reflect, and this is during the night before we get to the day. Kyle is mentioning that he has never fought and fired a gun before, and that he would go on and scare some people, but he would never do it to shoot anybody. And we also have Percy that is going on and mentioning about him and his father, and how I guess there was a time where Percy was to talk to his dad and mention if there was ever a time where he felt that he wasn't like all right with the world, that he should go on and figure out a way to get square. All of a sudden, Percy's starting to cry while he's doing this whole dialogue, remembering, I guess, a little something about his dad now that he's passed away. We had that one goofy moment also where Michael's explaining about, like, hey, once you guys, like, make sure you don't, like, burn your hand off. And then all of a sudden we have everybody looking at, of course, Percy, and he's like, what? Why are you guys all looking for me? Look at me because of that. So we also have at one point where Kyle and Audrey were on the roof, and I guess Audrey was to explain that I guess a boy that she was with used to be some military guy and used to be really into guns. But that part comes a little bit later. But I just wanted to explain that now to get that out of the way. And eventually I'll come back to it when that happens. So we go and we have Bob again fall asleep. And so Sandra all of a sudden is hearing a little whisper of something coming from this side of this diner. And we find out that Howard is to be tied up to this like crucifix like thing, upside down, of course. And so Howard is going on and kind of bubbling up here. And so Sandra is going and trying to save her husband because, of course, it's her husband. And so when she goes on and tries to save him, Howard all of a sudden is to explode and pour all this acid all over Percy and not Sandra, because Percy is going on and grabbing Sandra because he obviously realizes this is some kind of trap. And so Percy's trying to save Sandra from getting to this guy. And so all of a sudden we have Percy who falls over and dies. And so now Bob is kind of reflecting on the time him and Percy had been like best friends and all that kind of stuff, just reflecting on things. So we also had the moment before where I'm jumping around a lot. It's not going to be perfect. It is what it is. Right after Jeep was to not pull the trigger on that shotgun to kill Gladys, Bob and Jeep were in this bathroom, and Jeep was barfing because like he choked out. He choked, so to speak. Let's go with that. And we have it where Bob is telling Jeep, it's like, well, hey, like, when it comes down to it, like, some people will choke when it comes down to killing a person, shooting a man, whatever. Like, eventually, like being a hero, like, it's hard to come to that decision of ending someone's life. So, it's not the easiest thing to just pull off. So So we go on, and we, of course, have Sandra, who is to be tied up, and we, of course, have Sandra blaming Audrey for having them to move here. And Audrey's like, no, like, you guys decided. And Sandra's like, no, like, you're the reason we had to move. So now we're going to the other difficult, hard task. Uh, right after Kyle is to pull Audrey away from her mother to go and check on this radio station, and they hear that one radio station is still like doing a broadcast mentioning about how this apocalypse all just happened. So, and he's not sure how long they're going to be doing this for, but anyways. So we have the next run of things. So we have, of course, this, and I'm a little confused when it comes down to this movie, because we have at some point where this is a diner, but then also it's a mechanic place. Then all of a sudden it's a gas station. What the is this place? What the is all this? Like, we have, like, it just kind of becomes whatever it needs to become for this movie. Like, we have so many things that just kind of appear out of seemingly nowhere, where all of a sudden this place is now. And I'm like, wait, when was it all of a sudden that this was a gas station? Wait, when was all of a sudden this to be like a mechanic's place? When was this to be this? But I guess when really looking at it, it says like truck stop, but it seems kind of flimsy. So, anyways, we have both Kyle and Audrey after that whole explanation of Audrey saying that her past boyfriend was to be some Marine and she knows all about guns. So, but she doesn't really fire one off in this movie, really. I think she like fires a flare gun, but I don't know. That seems very that feels weak or whatever. So Kyle and Audrey are looking on as a father and son are in some minivan together, and so really in the casting thing of things, they're just called minivan dad and minivan son. So we're gonna have to get creative when we go down into talking about this. So we also have this like punk rock car that is a drive alongside this van, and is deciding to go on and be these monsterish demon things that are going after these people. And so both Audrey and both Kyle are trying to do the right things to help these people by telling them like, "Hey, get out of here!" Like, he's going on and like firing up in the sky for them to just run off and get back in their car, and so on and so. So they're trying to like scare these people off to get them out of here, to get them safe. And so all of a sudden this other car comes in and starts attacking these people, to where then Kyle has to rush to go on and save this kid because the dad is toast. So Kyle runs off and is starting to shoot through all these guys, go and save this kid. And we even have at one point where Audrey goes after Kyle and is to try to save him, after we go on and find out that the kid is also to be a possessed child also, where he goes on and is to bite into Kyle and kill him off, to where Audrey goes and is trying to save Kyle. And so we go on and we have everybody in the diner who's watching all this unfold, and Charlie is pushing for Michael to go and save Audrey, and she's going and telling Michael that, or Charlie's going to do something herself. So Michael's like, okay, just open the door, because Michael was seeing that Bob was going to try to open the door, and Michael's like, no, don't do it. It's a trap. It's a mistake. It's like, don't do it. So Charlie pushes Michael to go out and save them, and so he does. He goes through and he is blasting away at all these guys. Goes on and shoots a gun uh, to this gas and starts spraying this whole minivan with fire, grabbing Audrey and having them run like heck because uh, these gasoline pumps are going to explode. Conveniently, we have both of the characters going to this diner as the explosion supposedly happens. But honestly, when you look at the part of the film, it looks like the explosion would have happened a lot earlier. But I guess that's just me. So the magic of editing. So we now go on, and now we start to seem to have it where, like, the goofy thing is in this movie, we have this kind of light and dark thing that keeps happening with the power, where they keep turning on the lights, turning off the lights, turning on the lights. It's like, make a decision, movie. Make a decision, film. So all of a sudden we have Charlie who's being attacked by Minivan Son, and he's going through and he's like trying to stab into her as all she has is this uh, pan for defense. Charlie gets stabbed in the stomach, and all of a sudden we have, of course, Michael coming in, kicking this kid away, and saves the day, I guess. So Michael is to now realize that Charlie is forced into labor, and so Michael's like, okay, we gotta go and we gotta do this. Audrey is going on and forcibly gonna have to deliver this child, and Audrey is kind of going on of like, hey, just because I'm a woman, like, doesn't mean like I should be at the forefront of this. And so Michael is going on and he's telling Audrey, it's like, well, like, I'll tell you everything to do. And Audrey's like, okay, like, but he tells her nothing. Like, he doesn't tell her anything about the umbilical cord or whatever. But so once the baby is to be delivered, the baby is to be the most important cast member of this entire movie now. Nothing else matters. It's baby and nothing else. So we of course have we of course have Charlie that wants nothing to do with this child. As Audrey's like, hey, this is your baby. And Charlie's like, And Michael's like, hey, like, she'll have to warm up to it because she's going to need to protect this child in the future because no one else will. So, besides baby Jeep. So, we go on and we have Charlie who's holding on to this kid. And so now we have both Jeep and we have both Bob that are kind of on the roof now, kind of waiting things out. And so all of a sudden there's this weird, bizarre-ish horn that comes on, and now we're realizing that someone is really coming here. And Michael is kind of gearing everybody up of like, hey, he's coming now. It's like, who? Like, he's coming. It's like, okay. As both Jeep and Bob are kind of at the rooftop realizing like, oh my god, how many bullets do you have? Because there's like a swarm of possessed people all around this place, and they're like, oh my god, this is never going to end. Like, we're never going to be able to take all these people down, and there's no way we're going to beat this. So, luckily we have it to where Gabriel is to just make his way bashing through this door to try and go on and take this baby. Because we finally have it where Charlie's having this child, and so Sandra grabs it from her. And Sandra's like, you didn't even want this child, I'm just going to give it to them, and like, this will all be resolved. Everything will be fine. Everything will finally be done. And so we go on to have them forcibly take down Sandra and forcibly kill her. And all of a sudden the baby comes flying, and so Jeep goes for the grab as if he's like Bill Murray from or Peter Venkman from Ghostbusters 2, as he is to dive for the child, and he like gets and he's like, yeah, and so he goes off to go and get a shady spot for Oscar, and and then he's like, "Hey, like we're gonna do this." So Jeep goes on and grabs the child as Gabriel is making his way through this door, and he's gonna use his mace to try to take this baby down. But this baby is to save itself. I don't give a what Jeep does. The baby just saves itself. No, Jeep kind of like spins around as if this is from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where at the end of that movie we have, of course, Michelangelo that has all the foot squad, and they're bringing in those axes, and we of course have Michelangelo doing the Wheel of Fortune and like him spinning around, but like man, like these Foot Clans aren't lumberjacks, no joke. The only thing that wouldn't get hit would be the trees. Ha ha ha! And that joke. So we have Jeep that grabs this baby and is to like be safe with it because the baby is just going to protect itself. So we of course have Gabriel that is going on and meeting with Michael because we have to have this square down between these characters. So we realize now that everybody's like, we gotta get the out of here. So Michael is telling Charlie and everybody just kind of like make their way out of this diner, and so Michael and Gabriel can have this fight. We try to have Bob that is to try and get some licks in, but then eventually Gabriel is to put his wings, his metal wings, into Bob and stabs him and has him fall over. Where Jeep is like, no, that's not true. Well, he's not dead anyways. Okay, let's go. Let's leave. Dennis Quaid has to get one more line in, and then he's gonna be dead. So we have Michael telling them to get the heck out of here, because none of the possessed people will go after Charlie or Jeep weirdly right now, which makes no sense to me. Because I guess they naturally assume the guy with wings will probably take him down now. Or take them down, so what do they need to do? So both Charlie and Audrey and Jeep all get into this car, and they're driving like a bat out of heck. And so Michael is talking to Gabriel, and we like it just seems like every single time we have the exact same lines that anytime these guys are talking, it just seems like the same old song all over again. Where we of course have it where Gabriel is to always tell Michael, it's like, well, yeah, you've defied our father, and so like Michael is just like, yeah, like let's fight, come on. Like Gabriel is telling Michael that it's like it's too bad that you don't have your wings. It would have really worked out. It really would have benefited you in this situation. And Michael is just like, well, like I wanted to be like the humans, and so in that the weight of the wings was a burden that he didn't want to bear, and so we go on and we have Michael and Gabriel that are fighting it out here. And so we have some pretty good fights in here, especially with Gabriel and his mace. And so then we go on and we have, of course, Michael who's choking out Gabriel. And Gabriel goes on and is to stab himself to stab through himself to get to Michael. And so Michael is to fall over and he is to die here. And Gabriel's telling Michael, it's like, well, you wanted to live like a human, now you can die like one of them. So all of a sudden, weirdly, Michael is just a poof die. He poof died. He just turns into like dust and vanishes weirdly. So Gabriel is going after this police car that, of course, they have Jeep, Charlie, and Audrey inside of it. So Gabriel is kind of going on and doing like the liquid metal guy from Terminator 2. He's like hanging to the back of this car. And so they're going on and they're trying everything to get rid of Gabriel. They're going on and using this flare, which does nothing. Like what they should have done is they should have probably just tried to fire onto the wings to to flame uh, those wings up. But I guess technically those wings are maybe metal. I don't know. It seems very weird or inconvenient about those wings because how can you cut them off if they're basically made of metal? You'd have to just like rip them off, or I don't know. So we go on and we have, of course, before we have Michael that is to leave Jeep. Michael tells Jeep it's like we'll find the prophets and read the instructions and figure it all out. And Jeep is like, "What are you talking about? Prophets and instructions? What?" So when Michael is to die, all of a sudden Jeep is to have all these tattoos go onto him, and he's like, "Oh, the instructions. Oh, I get it." So we have them driving on with an angel on the back of their car, and so they're using flare guns, they're using bullets, nothing works. Gabriel's going further into this car, trying to go on and trying to stop this car from going any further. So Audrey is to hold on to Gabriel and is basically telling Jeep to speed up the car and then stop it fairly quickly. So both her and Gabriel will go flying through this windshield. And she's like, "Do it!" So they go flying through this windshield, and so now Audrey is basically toast. She's dead. And we still have to where Gabriel is still on, is still coming. So now we have it desperately where Jeep and Charlie's police car has flipped over. But the baby is so invulnerable to any possible injury because he's Bruce Willis from Unbreakable. That the baby is just like, "Dude, I'm saving myself over here." Like, the baby was to make it out of the car before anybody else was, because, like, I'm a baby. So we go on and, like, we have a bulletproof baby here. So, hence why I'm just like, yeah, you have a baby in a car accident. I don't like that at all. But so, once they get out of the car, we have Gabriel, who is to now have to deal with, of course, Jeep. Because if we couldn't get Michael to take down, of course, Gabriel, we're really gonna we're gonna have to rely on Jeep here. So Gabriel and Jeep are just fighting it out, and they're going on, and they're both like falling off this cliff. And Gabriel is telling Jeep, it's like, "Why are you fighting so strongly when you realize that all is lost here, that you're going to lose?" And Jeep is like, "Well, you, man, you." So all of a sudden, Michael is to come back as an angel out of nowhere. And Gabriel's like, "Huh?" Like, "But you have defied him." And Michael is going on and just saying, like, "Well, yeah, but, like, I gave him, like, you gave him what he wanted, but I gave him what he needed." So really we had it where Gabriel was just to listen to God, and what I guess God really needed was someone to defy him, to help him understand why humans are so valuable. And so I guess God was to go on and decide with Michael that Michael was technically right, to have Michael become an angel again, to stop Gabriel from doing what he was doing. So we have where, of course, Michael is given the strength to go on and this time around take down Gabriel. sword him in the chest, taking him down now. And so we have Michael, who is tempted to go and kill off Gabriel here. And Gabriel's like, do it, do it. And we, of course, have Michael, who's like, no, I won't. And Gabriel tells Michael, it's like, well, hey, I wouldn't have given you that same mercy. And Michael's going on and telling Gabriel, it's like, well, yeah, that's why you failed. That's why you, that's why that you have, it's why God is probably going to come and punish you after all this. So Gabriel goes and flies off to heaven to get whatever punishment is to fit him. And so then Michael is going on and telling Jeep, it's like, well, hey, I'll always be there for you, but not right now, because I'm going to go and fly off to heaven. And so Jeep is telling Michael, it's like, well, hey, will we ever see you again? And so we have it where we're immediately thinking that probably at some point Michael is at some point going to see them again, but I doubt it. Maybe a cameo, maybe something if they were ever to have gone and done a sequel, but I think it was all just to be left on their own. So Michael flies off to heaven, and so we have Jeep and we have Charlie, who's in this car driving off. And so Charlie's to repeat that same old story, that same old narration, where she goes on is to say that Charlie at some point was to ask her mother about why at some points would God disagree or something with their children. Why would God defy any of his children? And I guess Charlie's mother would go on to say, it's like, well, maybe because God is just tired of all the bullshit. So, yeah, we have a God that I don't know how many times and I don't know how many stories would go on and just no longer want to be God anymore. Or there's a lot of times where God had just given up, or God would just kind of, I don't know how many stories that we've had it to where now, God has just kind of taken a vacation. I don't know how many stories that we have to have it where God is just kind of riding the pines somewhere, just riding a bench somewhere. Just I don't want to be God right now. Suck it, world. I don't want to go on vacation. F everybody. Or there's some stories where we find out that there really is no God, or he doesn't really exist, or we have that kind of thing where we have to be told that he's not real. He was just a thing that people just wanted to just kind of sway power to. The angels just wanted to say that this guy exists. So if anything is to just be a mistake or whatever, they can just blame a person that doesn't really exist. So they can go on and just transfer all the blame to somebody else that doesn't really exist. So, I don't know. I don't want to be religious here, because immediately they'll be like, I don't think that that's my belief, and I get that. Or there's some people that are atheists here, and you get all that wrong with stuff. I'm not trying to be religious. I'm not going to sit on a podium and whatever, this is what I believe. I'm not saying, but it feels like there's all kinds of those kinds of stories out there. So believe whatever you want. Enjoy an angel story, enjoy a demon story, do whatever you want, because at the end of the day, it's time for me to say that I'm going to get the heck out of here so I can go on and review something else. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Hopefully I covered everything, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of dialogue that slipped through my fingers or things I had to go back to because there's stuff that I just wanted to remember about this film. But at the end of the day, get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.